welcome in everybody. I hope you're having a. My name is Shawn Kozel. Very first linked stream. Kind of tough to say. Oliver, hello there. But how sound is out is looking okay for Sandrine. Caroline, hello. Is that better? Worse? Not. Today have a Angus. Hello. We have a very special guest and overzealous account. Oh, all right. Let me check this. You know what? We're gonna go on with it. So, Burnt, hello. We have a very special guest, our very own, one of our favorite Adobe Live hosts, guests, is hi, Liz.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm so excited the fact that you accepted the invitation.
Of course I accepted the invitation. I've been looking forward to it.
Great. Now we have we have a bunch of new people in our community. Oliver says hi, Liz.
Oh, hi.
A bunch of new people within our community since last time Adobe Live you streamed. Could you introduce yourself? Give a bio.
Yeah, sure. I always find it hard to do a bio because I like doing too many different things. But I've managed to neatly like organize my business in my mind. So basically, the umbrella over it all is supporting small businesses with their branding. And then I do that in a few different ways. So there's like client work. So I do branding for clients, mainly branding, but I am like a bit of a generalist with graphic design as well. So I do some other projects too. And then I have a podcast called Building Your Brand, which is, I guess, free content that helps small businesses with growing their brands like through branding and marketing. And then, as you mentioned, I used to be an Adobe Live host. I would do regular Adobe Lives all about Adobe Express, which is a really great tool for helping people as they grow their brands. And I don't do that now. I occasionally stream. So I'm doing a stream next week on the US Adobe Live, which will be really fun. But I still do lots of work with Adobe. So I'm an Adobe Express ambassador and do bits and pieces, do talks for them at events, demos, that kind of thing. So that's everything that I do under the umbrella of helping small businesses with their branding.
That's a lot. Now, do you still consider yourself a graphic designer?
Yeah, that would be, if someone asked me, that would be what I would say first. I'm a graphic designer. And then I wouldn't normally give the umbrella explanation. I'd probably just leave it at that, and unless they started asking me more questions.
That's interesting. Your podcast, how long have you been doing your podcast?
So in a couple of weeks, I'm coming up to my 3-year podcast anniversary. So 3 years basically.
And is that once a week or?
Yeah, it wasn't at the start, but for the last year and a half, it's been weekly. I started off doing like seasons, so I do 12 seasons and then have like a few months break and then do another season. Then I went to doing it fortnightly. And then basically I just had so many people that I wanted to interview. Fortnightly felt too slow. So then I went to weekly.
Oh.
So but the only reason that I'm able to keep that consistently is because I have help. So I outsource the editing, and that really helps me, because one thing that I've learned about myself running a business is that I'm basically useless unless I have a deadline. So having someone I work with means I have to get her the content, by a particular date, and so then it does get done. So that's really helped me.
Wow. Now, okay, I have noticed on your YouTube channel. And let me go ahead and show this chat really quick. That are doing your own editing? Oh, that was it. Hi. On Shawn, there we go. Sorry about that. But there's Instagram.
My own editing of my YouTube videos.
Okay.
Is that what you're going to say? Is that what you're asking?
Well, you have an introduction video
Oh,
on
yeah.
your YouTube.
Yeah.
And it talks about you learning Premiere.
Yeah.
And so I see got about, what do you have?
I haven't, yeah, not many.
Not many, 8 videos. Well,
But
hey.
this is going to be my year for YouTube. I'm just telling you now.
Well,
you heard it here first.
I really enjoyed your intro.
Oh, thanks.
That was actually that you're diving in, learning so as for the podcast, because I've never done a podcast, said you're outsourcing. Like, how much of the work are you outsourcing?
So I outsource the editing of the episodes. It's something that I know that I could learn to do, but I wasn't that sort of interested in doing it. Whereas the video editing, I might not do it forever, but right now I'm really enjoying learning how to do that. But for the podcast, I outsource the editing, the show notes, kind of some of the teasers. I'm experimenting with different options for the video teasers at the moment. So yeah, I don't do loads on that either. But yeah, I am having a lot of fun editing videos for YouTube. Just learning different tricks. One of the things that has like blown my mind I don't know if you use Premiere much, but the way you can now edit basically from the transcription. So you just like highlight the text that you want to delete. Like, it is absolutely phenomenal. I love it. It
feels
good.
like cheating.
It does feel like cheating, but also, well, it's interesting. Well, this could spin us into a whole different sort of direction, talking about
Let's
AI. But I've been sort of reflecting a lot recently on how I feel about AI and which things excite me and which don't. And that's one of the things that does really excite me, because sort of like, scrolling through trying to work out the perfect place to like clip a video like doesn't feel super creative to me. I mean, I'm sure for some people that is, so if I can just like highlight the text and delete it and it clips it really well, I feel like that is a time saver for me of something that I wasn't that bothered about doing. But I can be creative, with all the other sort of aspects of the video. So I've been learning how to like make things whoosh in and whoosh out and do all like the sound effects and that kind of thing, like gets me really excited.
As a photographer, when it comes to editing, I love editing. And so in Premiere and After Effects, that editing part of it I enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I haven't made since that was released.
Okay.
So I'm kind of excited, because the way that I used to do it is I would have my script and I would have like 3 or 4 tracks and I would say the same sentence over and over again. Like, okay, that's not good. So, okay, I screwed that. And then I would try to get everything lined up and using markers and cutting this, and it was pain. So due to the fact that I have to still listen to the piece, that if I like it or if I don't like it, fortunately that wouldn't help me as much if it's a podcast, or even for that matter stream like what we're doing, and we're not doing multiple takes.
Yeah, it's just a clean run.
Oh, I didn't say that right. Let's go ahead. We're going to start over again. Hello, everybody. My name is Shawn Kozel. No, I'm excited to try it out. What else is coming out, or what else have you seen that's exciting you right now?
Oh, that's a great question. Well,
I mean, I know you can't give sneaks, No sneaks,
I can't.
NDAs.
I can't give sneaks. Yeah, I have signed NDAs. I mean, so one of the things that I've been doing recently is just speeding up my process again with a few things in Adobe Express. So I do really like that for my, like, obviously I mainly use Illustrator and Photoshop and stuff like that, but I do really like Adobe Express for speeding up how I create content on, like, for Instagram and stuff. The scheduler, I've got this trick which I'm a bit obsessed with, where I'm trying to be better at repurposing my content, so getting the most out of it. Like, well, I don't need to remake it every time. So what I've been doing is scheduling my post to go out, but then I duplicate it and draft schedule it for like 6 months time, so it's basically sitting there waiting for me. So when I get to that point in the calendar, I'm gonna have like loads of drafts that I can just go in, tweak it slightly, and I just think that's like the ultimate hack, and I'm so pleased with myself.
Okay, I would love to see your scheduler sometime. I don't have to show it today, but sometime when you look at Liz's Instagram, you are the boss.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, it's amazing. And I'm blown away whenever I get on Instagram how much of your content fills my page. Like,
I feel like that's probably a bad thing.
Absolutely not. Because the thing is, it's not clickbait.
No.
It's not, it's nothing annoying. It's
thanks.
Relevant. So, for example, I'm going to take a little bit of a tangent here, but have free workshop coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure we plug this. So I'm going to put this chat for everybody. And want to tell us about the workshop. The date, first off, let me tell this. It's coming up the 16th. So this Thursday, 12:30. Oh, great. I'm going to be streaming. I can't.
Oh, no. Don't worry. Yeah, it's going to be, it's basically going to be thinking about how you can make your brand stand out in 2024. I mean, there's so many brands online, there's a lot of noise, so just thinking of some like tips and tricks. I think personal brand in particular is going to be huge in 2024, especially with AI, as we've talked about. I think it's going to be more important than ever to sort of let our personalities shine online. So yeah, we're going to be sort of diving into all that kind of thing, having a little look at the end at Adobe Express and how you can sort of set it up to save you a bunch of time and use your branding as efficiently as possible. So I'm looking forward to it.
I am hitting the wrong button. So I put the link into chat. If you are interested in attending the free workshop, make sure to put the comment workshop in below on Instagram to hit the link. This is awesome. Thank you.
No worries. Well, thank you, Adobe, for sponsoring it as well, which means it can be free. So that's good.
Well, yeah. Now, okay. I'm my head. I've got tons of questions. First question. This is gonna backtrack just. I'm comments in chat. Everybody is saying hi and so excited to see. But we're talking about Express.
Oh yeah.
What is your favorite app? And you not have to say Express, even both the Express ambassadors. Your go-to app.
In terms of what? Like, or just in general?
So for me, my favorite and it is Photoshop. Like,
okay.
I love Photoshop, and it doesn't have to be for. It does so much, but Photoshop is like where I just.
Okay. So I actually have a new one, which is actually Adobe Fresco, because I love using hand-drawn elements in my designs, and I had this like really I guess just like not great workflow of how I would then vectorize those hand-drawn elements. And so I've basically discovered the vector brush in Adobe Fresco, and it's changed my life. Now I'm like, because I basically just draw what I want in Fresco, save it to the cloud, and then just open it in Illustrator, usually on my desktop, because I don't tend to use the Illustrator. I think there is like an app version, which I don't really use. But yeah, it's like saved me so many steps in my process. So that is my current obsession, but it's still sort of early days for me. So I'm like I'm getting to grips with how to use it. I feel like there's so much for me to explore. In terms of like other apps, one that I really love for video editing. So if I'm tending to use Premiere Pro more and more, like even for like videos for Instagram. But if I am doing something on the go, I don't love editing within Instagram. I just find it glitchy and it never seems to go the way I want it to. So I use an app called Vllo, VLLO, and I really rate it. It's really easy to use. I can make animated GIFs and then put them over the video really easily. So VLLO.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's another one that I used pretty regularly on the go.
Okay.
But like the video editing in Adobe Express has like, I'm really enjoying that at the moment. So I've been using that for making captions on my videos to make them all consistent. Obviously, if I've made it in Premiere, I can make the captions there, but I don't make all of my videos in Premiere Pro. So it's quite nice to have something that I can use and basically a few clicks and all my captions are looking exactly the same. Again, there's so many things in Instagram. I love Instagram. It's like my favorite app of all time, but there's so many things in there that go glitchy for me when it comes to posting reels. So I tend to do my editing and everything outside of that. Oh. But yeah.
Sandrine has a question.
Okay.
How does Liz manage all of her scheduled, given that they are assigned date?
Ooh, what do you mean?
I have no idea. What do you mean, Sandrine?
Do you mean like how they look, or that they're assigned? Do you mean the ones in the future? The ones in the future I just draft so that they don't accidentally go out, because that's what I live in permanent fear of. And this is what used to be my absolute fear on a live stream, is that I would be demoing the scheduler. I would schedule whatever it was that I just made and forget to put it on draft, and it would just get published.
And how many times did you do that?
No, it never happened. But I think because I was so scared about it happening that I just was like so careful.
That has happened to Katrina, the Adobe Express evangelist, at least 3 or 4 times. So good on you, Liz.
I've definitely seen it happen to Andy Lambert as well. But I actually love it when I see it happen to other people, because I just find it like quite so relatable. I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what happened. Like, I totally get it. But because I was like so paranoid about it, I was just like constantly checking.
Okay, so Sandrine clarified. Sandrine says, I have a lot scheduled. Put them in drafts, but they are assigned date. So I think she means about when, even though it's set to a specific date as a draft, how do you determine when you're going to publish it?
Okay. Well, so there is an option in Adobe Express where you can have them you don't have to have them like dated, and they basically sit in this like drafts panel. So that's one option. And then you can just drag them over when you know that you want to post them. But what I tend to do is I plan out what I'm going to post on like a Trello board, and then I tend to just go in and put them then in the dates that I want. But if they're in there as drafts, I do just have them there and drag them around as I need. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay. It does. Sandrine says I never saw that draft panel. Let me come back to my screen. This is embarrassing. My January post. So, where they're going to be published, So let's go ahead. We're going to take this, and what we can do is we can actually go ahead and, or we can come down here to more options. And as we go in and down here, we can save it. So we add the draft. There it is. And once, oh,
It's hard. It is it is there because I saw it the other day. But I think they've slightly. If you go
there
onto
it is.
week, there we go. Yeah,
It's the unscheduled post.
I knew it was there somewhere,
Yep,
but it's not as obvious as it was before. But yeah,
So if you hit this X up here at the top next, you're gonna have the here. I've got a draft set up, and it's not gonna be going out because it's this draft. And there you go. Sandrine says, "Okay, this stream is already working just for that."
just for that little button that no one knew was there.
Carol has a question. I love Liz's work and noticed on your website that you show any design work. Question: does it strengthen your personal brand? Ooh, a good question.
That is a good question. That is not strategic. That is the classic freelancer issue of me never making the time to update my portfolio and put it on there. I do intend to share my work on my website, but yeah, it just keeps getting pushed down the list of things to do. Amazingly though, it has not slowed me down in terms of getting clients, probably because I sort of share snippets of the kind of thing that I do on Instagram, even if it's not client work. But yeah, I do intend to put my work up there. But saying that, I did read a really interesting email by a really amazing designer in the US the other day called, I think it's Olivia Herrick. Oh, I'll check that. But anyway, she did a whole post about how she consciously does not share her work online and why she's just chosen to do that. And I think, like, quite often, you know, people will tell me off and be like, Liz, you have to share your work, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I actually, while I understand why they're saying it, and I do want to share my work more, I don't think that is true. Like, I don't think you have to do that to get work. So yeah, it's quite interesting to hear the different perspectives. As usual, it's not like a right one size fits all, but it is something that I would like to do because I think it does help potential clients sort of get a good feel of, you know, yeah, what I do. I think a lot of people often don't necessarily realize exactly what I do because I don't do enough of sort of sharing of that work. So that is definitely a goal for 2024. But yeah, as I said, because I have got client work coming in, it always gets bumped down the list of things to do.
Well, here's another question. Do you feel that because you have a podcast, because you are a public, and even your Instagram have a tendency between you?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's another interesting one that I've been thinking about recently because I think often, like, I have consciously been a lot more visible, I would say, the last year or two. You know, like, I've been working on, like, more consciously working on, like, PR and, you know, being guests on podcasts and things like, you know, doing things like this. And so I have definitely been more visible. And I think people feel like they know me better than they do. So I've done a post, one that I've actually done a few times because I like to repurpose it. But I think what I share online is actually such a small sliver of my life. You know, like, there's a load of things that I consciously don't share about. So I think what I would say is that what you see online, and you can answer this, Shawn, because we've met in real life. I think what you see online is the same as what I'm like in real life, but it's just a small portion of my life. So there's absolutely loads that I don't share. So I personally don't feel like people know me that well from online, but I can understand why people feel like they do, because I do share a lot of a sort of very narrow sliver of my life, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Because you and I, we even talked about at Max, um, felt as if already knew each other
Mm.
without ever meeting. So
Yeah.
that was absolutely.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't think before Max that we'd seen each other on lives and we'd chatted in the chat, but I don't think we'd ever like spoken, had we? So it's amazing. I think it is amazing how you can get to know someone from like actually a small amount of communication, or feel like you know someone from that. And a lot of the things that I do are like, you can hear me talking, and I actually think that audio is one of, like, it speeds up that process. I think that's one of the ways that people feel more connected with you, because they're actually hearing your voice. So that's where it's a bit different from, you know, showing up in the chat or vlog posts or something like that. But I think I think it's an interesting one. And again, like, I feel like my motto with like business is there's just no right or wrong way to do things, because I know, you know, people who don't show up like in an audio way or a video way anywhere, but actually they do such a good job of getting their personality across through their writing, because that's where their real like skill and gift is. And so I think you can find ways to show up and be visible that you feel comfortable with. It doesn't always have to be video or audio, but I do think video and audio probably speed up the process, just because, you know, you can see me here like chatting to you.
Absolutely. That kind of the whole reason behind this is for 8 months.
Yeah.
Here on Behance. Now, of course, could have seen heard your podcast post, so you're still part of our community. Just haven't had with us.
know. Yeah.
Let me know, Chad. Is that I tried some changes with my audio? Let me. They're saying my audio is,
Oh no.
but it's not for you, is it?
No, I can hear you perfectly. It's not coming out for me.
Sandrine asks, have you got any advice regarding posts the length of the caption, or that hashtags get attention now than within the acceptance? How long is too long?
That's an interesting question. So I have always had a hate relationship with hashtags. And I was like, not a love hate, just a hate. So I never really got on board with hashtags. That's not to say that I don't think they were valuable in the past. And so I would kind of like very half-heartedly put them on my post, but not use any particular like strategy or give it that much thought. And I recently stopped using them completely and have not noticed like any different in the engagement on my posts. That's not to say that they can't still be helpful. I feel like I don't see any of the sort of like Instagram gurus talking about hashtags anymore. I just think they're just not as big a deal. So from like a personal anecdotal perspective, hashtags weren't doing anything for me. I stopped using them, but you know, it hasn't been an issue at all. In terms of the length of caption, I actually think both can work. So I think it kind of depends what the content is you're sharing. So if you've got a like, you know, video that's got quite a lot of content in it and it's captioned, I think you can put like a really short caption. You don't necessarily have to repeat the content in the caption, but I've seen other people, you know, maybe put up a static post or something and then do a really long caption, and almost like all the content is in the caption, and I've seen that work really well as well. So I think it kind of comes back to what you enjoy doing. You know, like if you like writing really wordy captions and explaining things there, then I think that can work really well. That doesn't give you a definitive answer, I'm afraid. But the running theme is you kind of have to do what works best for you. I would say that mine, I don't tend to do really, really long ones, and I don't tend to do the sort of like one sentence ones. So like that kind of length that you've got up on the screen, I would say is my sort of average caption length, you know, like a couple of short paragraphs basically.
this is longer than what I'm used to.
Is it? Are you're a short caption man?
I am a short. No,
hmm So this has been really fun. It's like a challenge that I did last year. It finished in October, and then we started it again in January. So it's basically just like people can join in, and it's just creating a pattern every week. So one a week for the whole year. And I do it with a friend of mine, Ocean, and we kind of just created it because we wanted to do it. We'd done some pattern challenges that were over a month, but that felt a bit too intense to keep going, but we didn't want to stop. So we made our own version for over the year. And it's really nice because loads of people have joined in, and they like everyone uses different like mediums for their patterns. So like some people are painting them and drawing them. Others like there's someone who I know uses Adobe Express for all of them. There's other people who are like experimenting with different ways of doing them. He did do a few, yeah, last year. I don't think he's done any this year. But yeah, he did start doing it with us, which was really fun.
My audio.
Okay. So yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned earlier that I've been trying to do more PR for myself. And so one of the things that I did, I started it last year, and I've got this Trello board up because I made this template for it, which I can share if people want to use it. But basically, I started doing a rejection challenge. So I set myself a goal to get 100 rejections in 6 months, which now I look back on was absolutely laughable. And it never happened. But what was interesting about it, and I can't see the chat, so Shawn, you can tell me if anyone's asked any questions. But basically, what was interesting is that from the moment that I started doing it, my mindset completely shifted on how I felt about rejection. So it all came about because I asked someone to be on my podcast, like someone who's quite high profile, and they said no. And it was a totally kind and lovely no, you know, like it wasn't rude. It was like completely understandable. It was all lovely. But I just felt such a strong emotional reaction to it that really sort of surprised me. You know, like I felt a bit embarrassed, and I wished I hadn't asked him, and all these kind of like different feelings. And it just made me realize that I was, you know, like my default reaction then was to think, oh, well, I'm not going to do that again because I don't want to feel like this. And it made me realize that actually my fear of getting rejected was going to hold me back if I kind of let it take over. So I love gamifying things in my sort of work life. And so I set myself this challenge and basically started pitching for things. And a lot of it was podcast related for me at the start, because that was something that I was really focused on and I was trying to grow. So I was like pitching to higher profile guests. I was pitching for sponsors. And amazing things happened. I got nowhere near 100 rejections because people kept saying yes. And then I had to slow down on the challenge because I had to then sort of fulfill the things that I'd pitched for that people had said yes to. But I decided this year that I'm just going to keep going with it. It's just going to be an ongoing challenge for me. I find the process of documenting what I'm pitching for and what happens with it really helpful. So in the past, it would have been very sort of scattergun approach, and I probably would have forgotten the things that people had said yes to and just dwelt on the things that people said no to. But the process of documenting it has really helped me, and also it means that I can like do things like have a time to follow up, which has been a lesson that I've really learned, the sort of importance of the follow-up. So I made this Trello board to share with people, so where you can put your things that you want to pitch for, and then you can basically move them over into the yes board, the follow-up board, or the no board, and you can sort of like catalog everything there. And what I like about it is that you can then go into the cards and actually write your pitches in there, and then you've got them there if you want to like reuse them or, you know, use them for something else. But obviously, top tip, always make sure you double check the names if you're reusing a pitch, and don't send, thankfully I haven't done that either, but I have had a lot of people do that to me where they've sent me a template pitch and they forgot to fill out bits. So yeah, so that's been a huge for my business actually, and it's just made such a difference. And like through the process of doing it, I started to think about how it impacts, because obviously I am obsessed with branding, like how it impacts our brands and our businesses. And I actually got to do a keynote talk all about that last year at a conference, about basically how if we're not getting rejected, our brand isn't working effectively for us, because actually rejection should be part of our business, and you know there's like various reasons why. And that was really interesting to think about, and again really sort of like reframed my attitude about it, that actually it's a sign of growth and moving things in the right direction, and also pitching yourself to the right people. Like we should be expecting rejection. So yeah, it's been a really like amazing journey to go on.
So, has there been a pitch, and you don't have to give us name, one that you really wanted?
Yes. Yeah, there has been. I entered a couple of awards for the podcast, and I really wanted those, and I didn't get selected for those. There was one for a person who I really wanted to have on the podcast, and they actually sent me a really rude email reply. That was really harsh. I've only had one rude rejection, which was his. And that happened quite early on, and it did sort of give me a wobble, and I was like, oh no, am I doing the wrong thing? But then I what was really nice about it was I recovered from it so much quicker than I would have done in the past. And was sort of like able to like talk myself out of the wobble. So yeah, there's been a few things where I've been like, oh, that would have been amazing, but nothing that I've like really dwelt on for that long. Like that's the other thing that I've realized, is that I've managed to just like, I guess the whole thing of it is almost like exposure therapy and practicing. So I've managed to just practice being like, okay, that wasn't, you know, that obviously wasn't for me. I'm just going to move on to the next thing and just not get so hung up on them. Whereas I think in the past, I would have spent a lot more time dwelling on them and letting them get me down.
Okay, what was the biggest surprise that you didn't get?
Oh, well, okay. So I don't want to say the name yet because this hasn't happened, but I will. You'll see it at some point. But basically, the person who started this whole thing off, who I asked him to be on my podcast. I then pitched to be on his podcast, and he said yes. And his podcast is so much bigger than mine. So it's like, it's way better than what I'd originally asked for. So that is really exciting. And I will, obviously, when it happens, we'll share it and you'll all work out who was the instigator of this whole thing. But so that was one that I didn't expect, that was really exciting. I had a couple of podcast guests that I just didn't think would say yes, and that was Lisa Kongdong, who I have loved her work for like literal decade. Like I've been following her for over 10 years. And she said yes, and that we had an amazing conversation. And another designer illustrator in the US called Meg Lewis, who I absolutely love, they said yes. So that was really cool. And then I guess the other one that really took me by surprise, so I made a list of dream podcast sponsors, and at the very top of the list was Flowdesk. And basically, just as I started the challenge, they sent me an email. It was like an email to a whole bunch of different people. But it wasn't, it was a personalized email, but to a group of people. And so I was just like, oh, well, since I've started this challenge, I'm just going to go for it. And I asked them, and they said yes. So basically, within a couple of weeks of starting the challenge, my top podcast sponsor had said yes to sponsoring the podcast. And so then I was a bit like, I basically was like, oh, it's going to be easy to rack up all these 100 rejections because I'm just going to go out there looking for podcast sponsors and everyone's going to say no. And then the first one said yes. And I was like, oh, okay, this isn't working quite how I expected. It was amazing. And what's really interesting is that has then gained momentum because, I mean, I should have thought of this and I didn't really realize it. But once you have a certain number of, I guess, certain size companies that you've worked with previously, then that obviously really helps when you're pitching to other companies. So I'm currently iStock is currently sponsoring the podcast, which has been really cool. And I've had a few other really great ones. So yeah, that worked much better than I expected it to.
Just notice I had your audio very loud. I apologize, everybody. If that blew anybody's eardrums out. Okay. That's amazing. I really wanted to bring this up and talk about it because at Max, somebody, mutual friend, not gonna name names, was hired by you, actually, story that asked for something and ended up getting it.
I know. Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that was another thing that's come out of it that I didn't think about was the number of people who've messaged. So I started talking about it and I did reels about it and sent email, just talking about my experience of doing it. And the number of people that have messaged me saying, I saw you doing that and I thought I'd just pitch for this and see what happens. And I just asked for it. And then I got an amazing yes. So many people have sent me stories like that. And that's been really cool. And I think in the past, we've thought that we have to wait for opportunities to come our way and almost do what we can to get noticed, but just hope the right person sees what we do. And I think, that does happen, but sometimes it's okay to just go and ask for what you want because the other person might not know that that's something that you're interested in. And I think that was definitely the case, with our mutual friend. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough to do the thing or that he wasn't the right person for it. It was probably just that they didn't even realize that was something that he really wanted to do. And so then he just asked for it and they were like, yeah, sure. Yeah. That'd be great. So that was really cool.
Andrina's saying the good thing about being active, good clients are open. So more are likely to think of you for another.
Yeah.
When you get rejected, you get an lot to show your gracious. Oh, a good one.
That is a really good way to look at it.
Yeah, and I feel some clients are more open to listen to.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's an opportunity to that. I think that's such a good point about the graciously thing. I think it's just another opportunity for people to get to know you and how you handle different situations. And someone did recently ask me if I thought that sharing about these rejections had had a negative impact in terms of other clients seeing that and it putting them off. And I mean, I can't say for sure because I've got no data for this, but I honestly don't think it has. All of the clients that I currently work with have said positive things and have said about how it's helped them as well and inspired them to, do the same kind of thing. So I think people totally get that it's not me being rejected because my work's not good enough. It's more, I wasn't the right person for that job, or, there's all these other reasons why it could be. So yeah, I don't think it's had a negative impact at all. I think the opposite, really. It gives an opportunity to sort of share how you're handling the rejection, and I think that's a nice thing for sort of people to see and understand.
I have nothing to add. That was a great point, Sadri.
Yeah.
All right. So what is working on? What else for 2024 that you're going to be on your?
Yeah, that is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's one of those things that's been on my goal list for about 3 years, and I just haven't done anything with. And I think then the thing that sort of kickstarted it for me was I recorded some episodes of my podcast recently in a studio, and I had really great video of them. I don't think I'm going to end up putting all of my podcast episodes on YouTube, but for these sort of 4 of this series I was like, actually, that would be a really nice little series on YouTube. So I started doing that. I recorded that intro video that you talked about, and I think just kind of slightly improved my setup and also my editing knowledge, so it felt less overwhelming to make video. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna aim for a video a week, and sometimes there'll be sort of longer things. Sometimes there'll be, you know, like a short 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I've got a long list of like little tutorials that I'd love to do, and again, I don't want to say this in case it doesn't happen, but I have really missed the live streaming. You know, the weekly live streaming with Adobe was amazing. I loved the community. I loved sort of seeing the same people every week and just getting to chat to them. And so my plan is to, start live streaming at some point on my own channel. So we'll see how that goes. I think in a couple of months it could be possible.
That would be great.
Yeah, it'd be fun. You have to teach me, Shawn.
Well, it looks like I've got to figure this out. I think I'm taxing my for a little more audio problems.
Okay.
But we'll figure it out. And maybe have you back for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Today, I honestly say I feel that your talents were a little wasted. It's some of Adobe Lives.
Okay.
Are an amazing person with great knowledge, and you're so giving with that knowledge that doing a quick, like,
half hour. Yeah.
Half hour Adobe Express, not so much more to say.
Yeah, some of them were very fast, and it was like, and here's what you could do. Like I'd often over plan, and so they'd go very, very, very quickly. But it'll be fun to...
and us chat. What we would do is we would actually spend the majority of the time just getting you to laugh.
Is that what you were doing on purpose? Because that probably wasn't very hard.
That was half the show right there. Half the show is just you reading chat and laughing.
There was one comment that I still remember, because you know what it's like when you're live streaming and your brain's thinking about so many different things. And I remember someone made a joke in the chat, and I just read it out, and like I hadn't clocked it. You know, like I hadn't my brain was working too slowly on the chat. And then I suddenly realized what the joke meant, and I was like, oh, okay, I've got it. And so yeah, there was lots of funny scenarios, but I think that's what could be really fun about doing it on my own YouTube, is that I can sort of do a variety of different things. You know, like they don't all have to be demos. You know, some of them can be interviews and chats like this. So yeah, I'm excited to explore that as an option, because I mean, I had not really been in that world before I started the Adobe Lives, and I just feel so grateful for being exposed to it, because it is an amazing community. And you know, like people like, you know, getting to meet you in person. There's like other people still from, you know, the chat that message me on Instagram regularly, and we have chats, and it's just so nice. I really love it. And so yeah, hopefully everyone will find me over on my own YouTube.
Oh, they will. They will. I will promote it.
Oh, thank you.
You know, like what I'm doing right now. And that's why I brought you back. You're part of this community, and so
Oh no.
that's I asked you to.
Amazing. Thank you.
Liz, am I missing anything else? Well, want to talk about podcast? Like anything coming up with that?
So I'm doing a mini series at the moment with my friend Hannah, which has been really fun. So it's a lot more conversational, less interview style, which I've really enjoyed. And then, I've basically got a whole roster of guests lined up. So some familiar faces, I would imagine, for people in the chat. So this is a spoiler well, not a spoiler, but a teaser for me. But Kieran Lewis, who is also on Adobe Live, he's going to be on soon. So yeah, I've got lots of fun guests coming up, and I'm open to like ideas. I want to try and this sort of like little mini series has been a little experiment. I want to try a few, some different things out and not just do the same style of episodes. So I'm open to hearing people's thoughts. I've done some solo episodes, and I'm always interested to hear what people think of those in comparison to the interviews. But it's something that I've just completely fallen in love with, and I just love podcasting so much. So yeah, it's just really fun to do.
So you said you record video.
I do, yeah. So at the moment, I mainly just use it for the teasers. But I have it there. So potentially I will start to use, even if like, I was thinking the other day, even if I just do like a 10-minute snippet from a podcast recording, and then I can always put a link to the sort of full episode. There are lots of things that I could do with those videos. So yeah, I feel like I'm exploring video this year, and I'll see where all that goes. And at the moment as well, like even just in November last year, I did a reel challenge, because reels weren't really like my default content of choice. I would do them occasionally, but it wouldn't come that naturally to me. And I did this reel challenge where I did a reel every day for 30 days. You'll see the running theme in my life is to do challenges. And actually, at the time, I didn't really notice any difference or any benefit from doing that. Not that there wasn't any benefit, but, there was no sort of obvious, like one of them went viral, and, no obvious sort of thing happened. But what actually I've realized now is that it's completely changed how I feel about creating short form video for Instagram, and now I'm really enjoying it. So I've been making lots more reels for Instagram, which has been really fun. And one of them, I think, went like semi-viral, which was quite fun. And it was all about a pattern I created, so that was nice. And yeah, so I am enjoying video a lot recently. I'm finding it a really sort of like creative thing to do. So that has been fun. I mean, I've still got so much to learn, but I do love. I think I just really enjoy that, learning new things. But I get way too excited when I learn the most basic of things. But that's probably a good thing, because it just means that I'm always congratulating myself on the next tiny little thing that everybody else knew, but I've just learned how to do.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, when you learn something new, pass that along.
Yeah.
And you're going to help anybody else out. May not. Somebody may go, hey, good for you.
Yeah, and I think that is what's so nice. Like, I do really enjoy that about, that's why the Adobe Lives are so fun. And, there's a lot of designers and a lot of creatives that share tips and tricks on social media. And I do really like that, like, oh, okay, someone's learned a new cool thing. We can all learn from that and implement it ourselves. It's nice.
Bruce is asking, or are you planning on venturing?
So I did venture into TikTok. So I had a very weird experience with TikTok where I think it was sort of like maybe April 2022. I thought, I'll just put up a bunch of videos that I've made already for Instagram onto TikTok and see what happens. And the second video, I think it was the second, or like one of the first videos that I put up, went hugely viral. So like, I think it was 2.4 million views. And so I went from having 50 followers to, I think, 7,000 followers, like in the space of like a day. So that was a really interesting experience. Also, the audience on TikTok is totally different. So I had to kind of get used to people talking about me in the comments as though I wasn't there, or like I wasn't going to read them, which was quite interesting. But then, and so like I kept making videos, and some of them did quite well, and I did that for a while, but then I really lost momentum with it. And so I basically, I guess, sort of lost the routine of regularly making content for TikTok. And so my TikTok's been very stagnant for the last year because I sort of lost my way with it. So that is something that I'm sort of thinking about how to tackle, but also I'm not that worried about it. I'm having a lot more fun on Instagram at the moment. I like to consume content on TikTok, but I haven't really found my way with creating content on there yet. I don't think so. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with it.
I have not ventured onto TikTok. Ever.
Haven't you?
No.
Ever? Like you haven't even gone on it just as a consumer to scroll?
No.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, it is weird because it is so different to Instagram, just the vibe of it, even though it's sort of a very similar type of content. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Liz, I think we are going to wrap things. So you have a busy schedule.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time.
Thank you so much for being so excited.
Yay.
On Relink, and we'll definitely come back.
I will absolutely come back for sure.
Anybody watching this on any platform, scroll down below. All of the links to this description, and make sure to check out the podcast. One more quick plug. Finish. We have a workshop coming up on Thursday, the 18th of January. And make sure go through this. You can put it on your own. Sure to comment workshop. Hit the link, sign up. Make sure to check that out. Okay, Liz.
Oh, thanks for having me. Have a great day too.
Take care, everybody. Bye.